it is that time of the month to break down my previous month's financials. And for anybody new here, I'm an open book. I like to go into my profit and loss statement and inventory lab and really be open with you and give you a realistic breakdown of what people make that are doing Amazon FBA and online arbitrage. Now, obviously, everyone has completely different margins and goals and capital, but at least this can kind of paint the picture of what's realistic. If you see sales flying around, it's really hard to gauge what's possible. Is it worth your time and stuff like that? So, I'm going to take you into my profit and loss statement. We're going to break that down. I'm going to go over all of my expenses. And also at the end of this, I'm still learning like crazy. Like, I love the fact that I'm constantly finding new ways to do things, better ways, having insightful light bulb moments because it just reiterates the more and more I do this, the better and better I get, and the bigger moat I create around competition. So, going over the numbers will be brief, doesn't take that long. I'm excited to share those with you. And then I have like 9 bullet points of things that are top of mind, kind of where I'm at in my journey, how much I spend every month right now, how much time I'm putting into it, and just some general thoughts. So, with that said, let's break down the profit and loss statement. Okay. So, one of the reasons I do this is just to kind of prove that these are realistic numbers. I'm not going to bore you with all the details, but we will walk through it together. Okay. So, first things first, sales $39,301.27 up here in the top right. Then we have some refunds, which is par for the course on Amazon, some reimbursements, some shipping credits, general stuff like that, that dwindles it down a little bit to $38,821.54. Okay. Then this is an important line. I'm going to take a moment to go over this. Cost of goods sold, $22,978.77. Now, a couple of things I want to talk about this. This is an important number. For one, currently, my spend goal is now $40,000 a month. Okay, just to give you some numbers. What that number indicates is the amount of money I spent on inventory that sold in the month of September. So if I bought inventory in January, February, March, April, May, June, July, August, September, and it sold in September, that's what it's depicting. It has nothing to do with the $40,000 I spent in September unless that inventory also, or some of that inventory also happened to sell in September as well. Okay. So what you spend and your cost of goods sold are two different things. All right. And a reason I really like using this number is because it can be very impactful in reverse engineering. So bear with me a sec. So my total sales were $39,000. Okay. If I divide that by my cost of goods sold, let's call it $23,000 for a round number, that equals 1.7. So that lets me know for every dollar that I spent on goods that sold, my sales were 1.7 times that. And also, if you can use that information, real simple formula, go back a couple months and see what that number is and see if it's pretty consistent. Mine is. Basically, every time I spend a dollar on goods, my sales are 1.7 times that. Okay. You might say, well, yeah, that's great. And kind of estimating if I spend this, then I'm going to do this in sales. But take it one step further. If you know your profit margin, which once you do this for a while, you typically kind of get a gauge of. And by the way, if you are new, you can use like 15% if you're doing online arbitrage as a very realistic number. Okay. And now you can say, well, if my goal of profit is this, then I need to do sales of this because I know my profit margin. And in order to do this number in sales, how do I determine how much to spend on inventory? And that's where it all comes back together. So a simple enough column, but I think a very impactful one. And I'll put a link here. I've made a video specifically on this topic. Okay. So moving on, then we have selling fees, Amazon fees as a whole, basically. I always say general rule of thumb, they take a third, not always that much, but just so you know mentally, it is what it is. I don't care how much they take. It is worth its weight in gold. We're using Amazon and their Prime and their logistics and their brand. Okay. Drives me nuts that people complain about the fees sometimes. It doesn't matter what it is. Nothing would be possible if they didn't create all of this, right? Some storage fee stuff, minuscule, and inbound shipping fees. That's just like, you buy your shipping through Amazon. Just to give you some context, that was $269.15. But shipping to Amazon is pennies on the dollar. Okay. That's an irrelevant number as well. Then some other things here that are kind of important. These are going to be the majority of my expenses, which I'll break down here in a moment. So finally, let's finish up showing $4,412.76. Okay. Now, that number sounds really low based on $39,000 in sales, right? It absolutely is. It calculated that's about an 11% profit margin. Okay. Every day I want to be around 15% minimum. So I definitely had a down month in that regard. But I do want to share with you that is truly after all of my expenses that I'm about to share with you. So that is literally the only thing excluded is paying taxes on it. Okay. My subscriptions, my tools, variable cost, everything, right? That's it. But before I go over the expenses, I want to share something to you that I've really had a light bulb moment on. Cashback rewards is a huge, huge part of online arbitrage. I think I used to just kind of think of it as like this supplemental thing, but it's actually strategic to the point now I'm even thinking really fast, good moving products, even if they only make me a buck or two, if I have the capital, the cashback could be so good that it would add up over the course of a year. So let me explain to you. For one, I have a 2% cashback credit card. Every single thing that I purchase, I get 2% cash back on. Okay. Also, there's also free cashback extensions like Rakuten, Rebates Me, Be Frugal, Top Cashback, Capital One Spending. They're all competing with each other. And I would say on average, easily, I'm going to be super conservative here and say 3% cashback using those sites as well. I truly think in my gut it's more, but it's really hard to gauge because there's a big lag time. So you can't just look up like the way you would a bank statement, right? But I could absolutely say it's more than 3%, but we're going to say 3%. So the credit card and the extension tools, that's 5%, right? And as I mentioned, my goal is $40,000 a month in spend. Last month I spent like 37K on inventory. Let's just call it 40 for a round number. That's another $2,000 cash, and that's conservative, okay? That is like ultra ultra conservative in my opinion. So that brings that 4,400 up to $6,400 profit, which really brings my net profit margin to 16.5%. That's substantial. And also keep in mind, from my understanding, I'm not a tax professional. I have done research. You don't pay taxes on the cashback rewards because it's seen as like a discount or a coupon. You wouldn't go shop at Old Navy, pay 25% less, and then pay taxes on that, like you got income, right? And it's just like this delayed thing. But it's really nice to have those pops because that's kind of like cash flow in a retail business where cash flow isn't so relevant or so prevalent, I should say, I think is the right word there. Um, so all in, I think I made about 6,400 bucks pre-tax. Okay. Now let me break down with you the expenses. To me, there's not a whole lot that I use that I don't think has to be used for what I do. First off, you have an Amazon seller account, the pro account. Once you do 40 units or more a month, it pays for that option. Call it 40 bucks a month. It's $39.99. Okay. Then these are going to be the tools that I use. Okay. On a monthly basis. Keepa, it's about $17 a month. Okay. Worth its weight in gold. I would literally probably pay $1,000 a month. I'm not kidding. Like I'm convinced Amazon and them have a handshake deal. It is loaded with data and it's how you determine if you should buy something or not, among much, much more information. Inventory Lab. What I showed you, my profit and loss statement, it's great for reports. It's great for creating shipments. It's great for doing product research on your desktop. It also comes with Scoutify 2, the premier scanning app. I love Inventory Lab. They just increased their price to $69 a month. I would also pay hundreds for it. That's how much I love it. A REPRICER, I use is $65 a month. It's called Profit Protector Pro. I switched from SellerSnap. SellerSnap was 500 bucks a month. I think it was a little bit easier to use. It was great, but for the difference of $400 and change, PPP has worked out just fine. Okay, so that's what I'm using for a REPRICER. For anybody not familiar, when you do this at scale, you need a third-party software to move your prices on your behalf in order to win the buy box so you get sales on Amazon. Okay, and Seller Amp is around 15 bucks a month. And I still haven't mastered it by any means, but I really like a couple things about it that are worthwhile for me just as I continue to learn. Projections on how many times an item sells every month, seeing it right on the product page when I'm on a website instead of having to go into Inventory Lab, and a couple other things. At that price point, they've made it so it's a no-brainer. Okay. And so that total is $165 for those 4 tools and subscriptions. Okay. Now, there's one thing I added to my arsenal that's a fixed expense called OA Buddy. It's a one-time fee. I paid $180 with a 20% gift or credit, I should say. And basically, it's great because for online arbitrage, a lot of times canceled orders or flagged orders are part of the game. But this is a pop-up and you can see notes on this site. Like this site, there's no maximum amount, or this site will flag if you buy more than this or place this many orders in a day. So when you really think about it from an outside view and a business mindset, if this saves me one canceled order, it's already paid for itself and it's worth its weight in gold. Not to mention, I really like supporting this guy. He's probably my favorite follow on Instagram. I think it's OA Buddy. He just drops knowledge, just straight facts, knowledge. He has easily helped me grow my business just from some of the tips he shares on Keepa alone. So I'll link him. He's awesome. All right. As far as supplies go, like poly bags, tape, I didn't need much. It was just over $31. So OA Buddy and that and the supplies, which are variable expenses, $211.39. Also, I haven't included this before. I started putting it in here. I pay about $700 a year for insurance. Look up the terms of service, do your own thing. I have insurance. This is a business and a no-brainer. And from how I interpret the terms of service necessary, $60 a month. And I took an Amazon loan and it varies each month, but just to give a flat number for a monthly basis, I pay about $400 a month in interest right now. So as long as I keep having a balance, that's what it's going to be. I've made videos on that. I know that sounds like a lot, but to get 70K in capital for a year to pay back a total of 5 grand in interest, I can absolutely far supersede that $5,000. So to me, it makes a lot of sense. Anyway, all in all, those expenses this month were $876.64. I just wanted to share that with you. It's already been factored into the numbers we went over, so there's nothing else to deduct. My profit is still about $6,400 for the month. Now, if you have been following along, it's definitely a down month. I can give some estimates or reasons I think it may have happened. I had to cease and desist a couple products and I felt the lapse in that. I'm really realizing with OA that just things don't last forever. And also I think just some things haven't hit the shelves yet and it's just it takes time. It takes time and it's just one of those months. And I wouldn't be surprised if I got a pop here in October or November from products that have just taken a lag time to get there, right? So that's kind of the numbers. Now, as I mentioned, I want to share with you a couple of things I'm constantly learning, all right? So these are going to be kind of quick, but we'll just run through them and kind of just share where I'm at in the business, some thoughts I have, etc. So I already touched upon this, but cashback is huge, right? I talked about conservatively, I made 2,000. But what if I get to a point I scale my business to I spend $100,000 a month on the business? And let's just hypothetically say I break even, okay, on everything that I sell, but I'm earning 5% cash back. That means I'd make $5,000 a month, $60,000 a year just on cashback money. Okay. And that doesn't even count for the credit card bonus of like 3 grand if you open a new one with this card I use. And there's other games to be played. So that's absolutely something that is important. And I should mention, I do kind of factor it into my decision-making process. So sometimes if I break even on a product in my head, when the cashback was there right in front of me, I knew that even if I break even, I'm going to be making money on the cashback side of things. And that's another reason I think my profit margin went down. By the way, I should have mentioned that. So just know in summary, cashback is huge. There's no reason not to have the free extensions. I have links in my bio. No brainer. All right. As far as my schedule goes, I think this is worth sharing with everyone. I've tried different things, sourcing 1 or 2 days a week, just going super hard. For me, I've gotten into a groove, waking up super early, go to the gym, get my day situated, and then put in 2 to 3 deep hours or 3 hours of deep work on sourcing. First thing I do every day, I make it a priority. And I think that I like that because one, I like doing it every day for a couple hours because it keeps me fresh. Like you roll over things that you thought of yesterday. Whereas if you take a couple of days off, it's easy to forget or not to miss out on a sale or this and that. So I kind of like that. And I do like setting a finite amount of time So this way it kind of forces you to really dial in. So just to give you context, now up to now, and this will lead me to my next thing. I've started using a prep center and including my mom as a prepper as well. But I was putting in way too much time prepping. So 3 hours of sourcing, probably an hour or two a day on prepping. Call it 5 days a week, just to give you guys some context. Okay, but yeah, that's another thing. I just joined a prep center. I made videos on if prep centers are worth it recently, and my thought on why I'm using them. Also, my mom's in Florida, a tax-free state for vitamins and supplements and stuff like that. So I'm teaching her how to prep too, and it's really opened my eyes. I think a lot of you should think about family and friends too, because so many people have gripes with prep centers or the trust thing. And rather than pay someone else, keep it in my mom's pocket, especially if she's in a tax-free state anyway, or tax-free even on certain goods. So something to consider for you guys. Another thing I want to mention, I think everyone loves online arbitrage because it's sexy to make online money. And I agree, and it's scalable, and there's a lot of perks. But just know, I did retail arbitrage for like 2 years. The profit margins and the ROI is so much better on retail arbitrage. You're not competing with the world. You find specific clearance items and store and regional specific things when you're out and about. So just so you know, if you have a tight budget, okay, your bang for your buck can go so much further with retail arbitrage. Your price taking doesn't happen nearly as much, especially if you're not just buying like Walmart clearance stuff where it happens nationwide, right? Um, I don't know if you're not trying to make this like a $10,000 a month business, even though people do that with retail arbitrage, I think you would just burn out. But like if somebody said to me, I just want to make an extra $1,000 or $2,000 and I have a tight budget, or even if you don't and you don't mind shopping, I'd say go do RA. You can get 100% return on your money all day long. OA requires a lot more capital. Okay, a lot more. So just something to think about. Stick to the spend. This is kind of one of the reasons I'm not tripping out about my month being down. Basically, what this means, and I believe in this more than ever, the only thing that I can truly control when it comes to the finances is how much I spend every month and my parameters. So let's just say everything I buy has to be 30% ROI. Well, I know that if I spend $40,000 consistently every single month, in theory, that means I would make $12,000 profit, right? Now, of course, not everything gets checked in at the same time. There's lag, price taking, etc. But if I control that, everything else will fall into place. Even if it tanks, right, and goes down by a third, I still make $8,000 profit a month. Okay. I can't control when things get checked in. I can't control price tingers, but my profit margin is always pretty consistent, minus this month. My ROI is always consistent. If you just follow the spend, that's like your North Star to put you right where you need to be. All right. So I really believe if you want to hit your goals, one of the best ways is just continue to follow your spending budget. Buying deeper. This is something that's definitely changed for me. I think it's really smart to test buy, mainly because if you're not super adequate with Keepa, you might not really understand the data you're interpreting. And then, like anything, things sell or don't sell, you look back and then you learn from it. But now I'm at a place, I've put in so many reps, I have a much better gauge of it. Now, I'm not saying it always still works out, but the amount that I'm buying more quantity of is just going up exponentially. And the reason for that is I trust my reads. I've put in the reps and times. Again, I'm like 2.5 years in. And now I kind of have the mentality I would rather buy 50 of something than test buy 10 of 10 for 5 different things at this stage in the game, because that takes 5 times the amount of time to find those products. And if I read it right, I'm going to do well. And if it stops and changes halfway and I break even, whatever, so be it. Learning lesson, just keep it moving, right? But as long as I know it's going to sell, and my worst case scenario is like break even, I'm much more confident going deeper. And by the way, if you're a newbie and you're like, how do I get to scale? One of the ways by understanding how to read charts properly and having that confidence, you're just going to buy more of the same one. So it doesn't take you longer. You're just buying more of it. Okay. I do suggest test buys still though for a lot of newbies so you can learn. All right. It's not get rich quick. This one's kind of something that's been very obvious to me. I don't think I'm going to make a video on this. I'm still thinking of the way to explain it. I know it's really attractive. People love seeing these big sales bars and there's a lot of young bucks that are crushing it on Amazon. I don't think the average person understands this. Like 99% of Amazon sellers are cash poor. they're constantly spending more than the profit that they're making. And when he's tied up from you, but you order the product, it's tied, that money's tied up until it gets to you, until it lands then on Amazon shelves, until it goes live, and until the customer sells it. And then Amazon holds on to it for reserves for a little bit. Your money is tied up all the time. To me, in summary, most of Amazon sellers that are scaling are cash poor, inventory rich. So nothing's wrong with that. I'm not knocking it at all. But just know, like, a lot of people I think hope to quit their jobs and stuff. And if you plan on scaling really quickly, yes, you're going to be inventory rich, but it's hard to all of a sudden cash flow. So what I tell you is profit is profit. It doesn't mean that's what I'm taking home and putting in my bank every day. Okay. Most Amazon sellers are cash poor. I will die on that hill. All right. Another really simple thing that's crossed my mind. I mentioned to you $40,000. And this kind of ties in my spending theory thing as well as cash poor, right? $40,000 at 30% would equal $12,000. Simple enough, $30,000 spend at 40% ROI would also equal $12,000 and achieve the same goal with $10,000 less at risk, being tied up, etc. So I would say, I think as a whole, as humans, we kind of expand or contract to our limitations of what we need to work within. Like, think about a job. Someone might say, hey, I need you to do this today. There's 3 hours. You can get it done. Or if they say, hey, I need you to do this in 2 hours, you can probably also get it done, right? There's very few things that when you need to make it happen, you can. And I think it's nothing's wrong if you have the capital 40,000 at 30%. That's great. But if you are more restricted or you need more cash flow, be a little bit more selective. You might have to pass on things or whatever the case may be. That's fine. But just know, I think it's worth mentioning. I think we can all be a little bit tighter with our money sometimes when it comes to making quality purchasing decisions and receiving the same outcome, right? Another thing, and lastly, I'll end on this. There is no perfect way of knowing how long a replenishable item is going to last. Okay. I used to think, especially in the RA world, replens. With OA, with the amount of stuff out there now, I just don't think replens are really a thing. Like, you get in, there certainly are, right? There certainly are. Don't get me wrong. You read the chart to the best of your ability at that given time with that given sale and cashback and where you're at in the business. You make a calculated choice, and you just roll the dice a little. And if, again, worst case scenario, for the most part, you typically probably break even. Best case scenario, you make a nice buck. But there's no way of knowing when that's going to just stop. So don't try to bet it or be perfect on your estimation. Be smart, be calculated, don't overextend yourself. That's why you keep going deep, or just keep adding more and more and more products. You have to constantly be sourcing. All right. It just is what it is. So anyway, that is September in a nutshell. My financials, what you can expect to make based on certain sales, kind of, at least for me. I just wanted to share that with you guys, and a couple of things that are on my mind. And I appreciate you guys being here. I'm Jonathan. Duke does Amazon. Any questions, comments, topics, put them below. Have a great day, and I will talk to you guys soon. Take care.